So is the laundry done?
Yep, check.
Towels folded?
Yep.
Shirts pressed?
Yep.
Groceries bought?
Yep.
Dinner prepared?
Yep.
Paramania radio turned on? Well?
Uh-oh.
Don't let this happen to you. Paramania's here. Join us at paramaniaradio.com.
Do you want talk radio that is hit, exciting, and has amazing guests?
And it's all about the paranormal. Join Sheena Meadow each week on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. You'll want to come play with us at the Haunted Playground.
Hi, this is Alan Cox from Musical Memories on the Paramania Radio Network. Come and join me every Friday, 11 p.m. UK time at 6 p.m. Eastern for an hour of great music from down the decades.
You are listening to Paramania Radio.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Paramania, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
You are listening to Paramania Radio.
You're listening to the Parasearch UK radio show with your hosts Kerry Greenaway and Jay Lynch, right here on Paramania Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Parasearch UK radio show. Kerry Greenaway, how you doing on that side of the pond?
Oh, I'm doing fine and dandy, thank you, baby.
You sound like you're all pumped up, and something about Luke Walker said that he's got you guys all pumped up and ready for tonight.
Yeah, I love Luke.
Yeah, I know.
He's such a sweetie. I love that man. Yeah, Luke and Vinny were awesome. They were absolutely awesome tonight on the show. They were brilliant. We actually ran over by half an hour. So, yeah, they were absolutely brilliant. So thank you guys for coming on awesome, Parasearch Radio. They were brilliant.
Which are they? Awesome or brilliant? Or are they both?
Oh, they're both, but yeah.
I enjoy them. They are great to talk with and stuff. They're absolutely amazing. And I like what they're doing. I like the style that they're doing, the technique and how they're going about things with the paranormal and the thing that they're bringing to it, a fresh look and stuff from their perspective.
No, I totally agree with you. I think I love it when they get their smarts out. They're a bit like you. They're a bit like you. They don't get their smarts out often, but when they do, they blow you away, and that interests me.
Speaking of getting some smarts out, we got a gentleman tonight that you brought on that's going to give us pretty much a good tech talk and educate both of us and hopefully a lot of other people too.
He's been trying to educate me on tech for absolutely ages now, and he knows me very well, and I love this man dearly. His name is Carl Hutchinson. Good evening, Carl.
Good evening, Kerry. Good evening, everybody else.
Good evening, Carl. It's nice to have you with us. Thanks for joining us tonight.
No, pleasure to be here.
He's my tech wizard.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. So what kind of camera is that again we was talking about before the show started, Kerry?
Well, in my head, it's an SLR, but it's not. It's an SLS. Stickman
camera.
Yeah, it's the Stickman camera. That's what I call it.
I was trying to educate her.
I've been trying for quite a while. It just doesn't seem to be sinking in.
Very true. Very, very true. No, I wanted Carl on the show because he's so amazing with tech. And he literally takes it apart, puts it back together again, knows the ins and the outs of every piece of tech. And it's fascinating to me that somebody has got that kind of interest, quite frankly. Me, it's just like, oh, it's tech. But somebody like Carl is so important in the field of paranormal investigations. So I wanted to look at the more latest things. I mean, we all know K2s and millimeters and, EVP recorders. We know about those. But the newest tech that's out and phone apps and stuff like that, I wanted to break it down a bit and sort of like, get into the nitty-gritty of it, really. That's an English term, nitty-gritty.
That's a term over here, too.
So, Carl,
Mm-hmm.
what do you make of the Stickman camera? Let's go with Stickman cameras to start with.
Okay. Well, the SLR camera system setup is obviously quite new. It's sort of been in the field for probably 2 or 3 years now. First came into the field really when Ghost Adventurers used it on a couple of investigations, one being St James's, and the basic of the Stickman camera, as you call it, or the SLR, which is structural light sensor camera. It produces, as it says, Stickman, so it maps out a human form on screen. Mm-hmm. So it will look for human form, and the idea that it's used in the paranormal is if there is a ghost, spirit, or whatever you call it, and it locates it, it will then map out a figure that isn't actually there. So that's the basics of the SLS. But there's various different types of SLS. There's the kinetic camera, which is the Xbox, the Microsoft camera, and then there's other forms of it that have been designed by some of the leading guys in the field. And the one I own and the one I use was made and designed by Bill Chappell at Digital Dowsing, which is based around the XCam, and that's the camera I use because there are other functions. You can get live data. It picks up on the environment changes. It can pick up on thermal, and you'll get live readings off the tablet, because the one I used to have one like that, which was a PC base, so you used to set it up, the camera, but then it wasn't very portable. So Bill at Digital decided that he wanted to design something that was portable, so he used the basis of the XCam, which is like a static camera that they used, that he designed, where he basically had all these other functions as well as audio and sound. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason I tested probably 15 different setups before I made my choice. And the reason I did that was because the way I look at equipment is I need to understand what it does for a start, how it works, but also the false positives. And this is the bit where there is both sides of the arguments of this bit of equipment, because some people say that it basically will map out things in the background that will look like a human form, such if you had, say, a lamp with a lampshade on a table behind something, potentially, because it looks like a Head and Shoulders, it will map that out. Mm-hmm. So I had to. I road tested quite a lot of different systems before I made my own choice of what camera I would use. And the one that I use, because of the real-time data feed that you get, so you get all the environment, you get the light, you get the air pressure, you get everything in a data form, and that's what I like to use, because you can use one bit of equipment and you can just get an amazing hit off it, but at the end of the day you don't know what is going on that could potentially cause that. And as I use it quite a lot when I'm talking about equipment, it's the false positives that you have to understand with the equipment as well. What potential drawbacks, what natural phenomena can cause something to give you some sort of reading that you've got to keep an eye out and look at. And everybody goes quiet.
No, yeah.
I
was going to go quiet on that.
I've used the SLS camera a few times. I don't have one personally, and I've got a couple of my friends do. And then when we're doing that one filming project, we got one that we use on there. And my wife's sold on the camera, and our Paravisions team has one, and they're use it quite a bit. I still have my reservations about it because I have seen it map out like a water heater, but like you said, because of having the other camera sensors to it, having the heat sensing and things like that, and also the regular video camera and it recording, you can see that it's a water heater, so you know that you can then dismiss it. I agree with some of the other ones that don't have that technology. All they have is the stick figure style camera. You can't let a review and be able to credit or discredit what you've recorded. So I'd say that the one with Bill Chappell has made is digital dowsing is probably, I agree, one of the best ones out there. My favorite to use.
Yeah, I think one of the good things about the way the digital dowsing one is set up is you can record the stick man or the technique, obviously where the stick man will appear, but you get a side-by-side view of like a normal camera view. So if you're doing it around the room and you can see that potentially there is a lamp or there is a water heater or there is this, that and the other in the room, and then you get a hit on it, you've got the overlay of actual footage taken exactly at the same time as the stickman camera is being used. So you can basically pull out anything that potentially is a reading, but it's a false positive, basically. And that's the reason I use this. Like I said, I road tested so many of the different types of camera before I made my own choice. And that is the only reason I went there, is because of the amount of data that you get from this system. That you can then look at it and think, well, if I've got this and there was a drop in the pressure or the temperature went up or the biometric or the static in the air or the ionized field, because you get all this data, as most of the digital dowsing products, the latest products do, they give you every possible scenario mapped out in grid form, and you can basically say, right, if we captured this at this particular time in the session, you can then look at the data to see if there's any anomalies. Okay. And I think that is the key to any equipment that you buy, is being able to look at it in multiple different ways. So if you capture something on the camera, or you capture something on an EVP, or you capture something on a millimeter, a REM pod, or whatever bit of equipment you're using, what are other things could factor into that? And you can then basically try and think, right, okay, if there's a temperature drop and this comes in, that comes in, can I then recreate that in another environment, in another location?
Okay, so we've had a point of view. This is from our lovely Ashley Nib. Give it a shout out to our Ashley. He says he doesn't like the stickman camera thing. I love the way he's using my terminology. He's not convinced with the algorithms running in the software that whether they are solid or not.
Yeah.
See, we're talking algorithms. That's just went straight over my head. Well, and there are too many variables open for misinterpretation in the environment. What is interesting is when the little stick dudes interact. But then again, I think this needs greater research to clarify what is going on. So what's your take on that?
I think actually he's correct. There are drawbacks to the equipment because it's such a new bit of equipment. And the problem you've got is everybody sees what they see on the TV and think, right, okay, I'm going to take something which was not designed for the purpose, i.e. the kinetic for the Microsoft, the Xbox camera, which basically will just map out a figure, that you can get drawbacks to that bit of equipment. But when you then look at other types of mapping systems that then will take away the drawbacks of certain other bits of equipment, so if it does map something, if you can then determine that there isn't anything there that potentially is a false positive, such as a lamp or such as this, such as that, and then look at the data behind it, what's happening in the environment, then I think that's more interesting than just taking it on face value. You've got a stick and then it was standing there and it was waving at you.
Okay. Max has asked a question. See, a lot of this is going over my head. I'm not going to lie, everybody. Tech. It's a tech thing. I kind of get what you're saying. I'm not stupid. But to look at that data and to break it down, that's where I come unstuck. I go, okay, not sure. No, yeah, don't know what I'm looking at.
See, that's where you get that feeling with the tech things. That's exactly how I feel. And I don't know, I can't speak for Carl, but I know that's exactly how I feel, being a guy that relies more on the equipment stuff. When you guys start talking about crystal grittings and your senses and I see this or I feel that or I heard this, and we're like, yeah, okay. And then we come in with our equipment and you're saying these things and we get readings to verify that. To me, that's where the paranormal's at. That's where we're going to make our advancements at, is the combination of the two. But you not understanding the tech is exactly how I feel. And I feel sometimes when you and Teresa and all you guys are talking about clairaudient, clairvoyant, clair this, stone crystal, that. See, and you guys get mad. We don't like when you call it that sticky camera thing. You don't like when we call it, well, what about you and your rocks? Oh, God, don't call them rocks. Yeah, don't call them rocks. My God, that's not a rock.
That's a fair point, Jay. I take that on board.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything that was just said there, because I'm not sensitive. I'm not a medium. I wish I could, because it has saved me a hell of a lot of money. Because one thing about equipment, when you get into it, it does sort of add up. But yeah, I'd love to know from a medium's point of view what is going on in their head when they are picking up on something. I'd love to be able to just, it's down to the equipment again, is like flip top head and see what's going on inside the head, see what the brain is doing, see what the synapses in the brain is doing when they're picking up on whatever. Same thing about crystals. I'd love to be able to talk, when you talk about crystal energies and you see different glows in auras and stuff, I'd love to be able to understand that, but I can't. So I use my knowledge and what I've learned about equipment to try and give me some sort of insight into what we're doing when we're on an investigation or we're doing stuff like that. And I think that's where this field is very, very exciting, because there are so many opportunities at the moment where people are coming up with different ideas, different theories, different ways of looking at things. And you think you can be in this field for 50 years and you're still learning, because it just takes one person who comes in and says, well, have you thought about doing it that way, or have you thought about using the equipment in that way? And you go, oh, hang on, I've not thought of that. And I think that's where it's brilliant, is people say, oh, you're a tech expert. I'm not an expert. I just have a knowledge of how things work, and I use them to my best ability. I wouldn't call myself an expert, not whatsoever, but I know the equipment. And I know that I've learned over the years that you can see it on the TV, you can go out and buy it, but if you don't know what this bit of equipment does, all you're doing is watching flashy lights in the dark or the screen scrolling through data. Unless you understand what you're seeing and what the equipment is doing at the time. And I think that's where my knowledge sort of comes into it, because I've had to learn that, because I have to understand what that bit of equipment is doing.
Yeah. And
how that affects, how it works, before I would be happy to take it on an investigation. I've road tested over the years so many bits of equipment where I would think, well, I'm not happy of taking that into the field, because I'm still not 100% sure how it works. So I think that's where Ashley's coming from. with the SLS is that it is early days, and we are still learning about it. So yeah, it
is a brand spanking new kind of. It has hit the paranormal investigation world in a big way. It's had a big impact on the paranormal investigation way. Now, Luke has asked a question: how does any meter, Xbox controller, barometer, or any paranormal equipment prove the existence of anything paranormal? It doesn't, does it? It just proves that there possibly could be an anomaly.
We're in an unproven science. We are using what we understand the equipment can do, and using that in a way to try and understand whether what we are looking for potentially can be tracked or can be picked up on these bits of equipment. I'm not saying any bit of equipment out there is definite proof that there is paranormal, because we don't know whether there is paranormal.
No.
I've been doing it God knows how many years, and I still question myself whether what I'm doing is real. Because when I came into the field initially, I was a complete skeptic. I thought it was people scaring themselves in the dark.
Yeah.
And then things happened to me in my early career where I then started to go, hang on, well, I sort of have an understanding of what I'm doing. What caused that? What caused this? What caused that? And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a medium or whatever. And these people are saying, well, there's a spirit there who's done that. And I'm like, well, okay, I need to understand how I can understand that in a way that my logical mind will work.
Yeah.
So that's why I then went into the equipment side of it, looking at different bits of equipment, even down to equipment that wasn't designed for the paranormal field, isn't branded as a paranormal equipment. You can take bits of equipment, even down to kids' toys.
Yeah.
Which I use on investigations, such as there's a thing called I Spy laser grids, which is basically a kid's toy. But you know the film with Sean Connery where the woman goes in between the lights?
Oh,
and
yes.
you spray it?
Yes.
That basically I use as, like, instead of the motion sensor, I use like that on doorways.
Yeah, I don't do the getting in between the laser beams, though. I'm not that flexible.
I don't do the spray. I'm far too robust for that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's not my role in that. I'd just like to point that out to everybody.
But I've used it because it's this particular bit, because it's very, very good. If something breaks it, an alarm goes off.
Yeah.
And you can actually, if you wanted to, you can spray it and you can see the light going across, so you can actually see that there is this light that will alarm if something breaks it.
Yeah.
And this is a kid's toy, which I then have looked at it and thought, hang on, I could use that, and then tested it and worked on it. And then I would think, right, I'm going to use that in the field. So all these bits of equipment, all the new stuff, the great this, that, and the other, you need to understand what it does first, what its drawbacks are, and how you can use it. Because, like I said, one bit of equipment giving you some sort of activity might be great, but you need to then back it up with other bits, whether it's history, whether it's mediumship, whether it's other bits of equipment. If you can get something that you can collaborate from all different angles, that to me is the interesting thing that we can then move this forward.
I agree. I totally agree with that. Now, okay, Max has asked a question. Since this can be manipulated in theory, and the fact that we are looking for something that we cannot particularly identify, how could this technology be any more accurate than any other technology? The answer to that is it can't.
Exactly. As we've said, it's an unproven science. We are doing something that we believe as investigators is real, but science at the moment cannot prove that it exists. Yes, we can take it on face value from mediums, sensitives, blah, 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 that they see, they talk to dead people, etc., etc. But we have to take it on face value. Similar to with the equipment, you have to take that on face value, because we know the ability of the equipment, and that's what we're using to try and clarify if this thing, this field that we're in, is real.
Which none of us can say. None of us can say that.
No.
Okay, so we've had another question. I'm not asking these, Carl. This isn't me going heavy on you. This is the chat room.
Absolutely
Just like to point that out.
Not a problem.
With the move over to digital methods of capturing supposed paranormal evidence, isn't there more room for false readings? An example would be the change over from film to digital photography, more or less something captured on a 35mm SLR, for instance, would physically have to be present in the environment for the film to pick up, whereas digital cameras are so debatable and suspect, i.e. they can be easily manipulated.
Absolutely. Digital cameras have a flaw. Every single digital camera will have a flaw, even down to cameras on your phone. And this is something which when I do talks to people, when I'm in an environment, I'm talking to people, and they ask me, "Oh, can I take my mobile phone and take photos?" Yes, you can, but you've got to realise the drawbacks. Every single camera phone has a drawback, and that is what you see on the screen is a split second from when the actual picture takes. So if you move your camera even a minute, the iPhone is the biggest flaw about it, is that you can take a picture, it looks like it's taking a picture, but if you've moved it a fraction, split seconds, that picture has not actually taken on the camera. So there's a split second that you can potentially cause anomaly. This is what I say about false positives. You can move something slightly, and then all of a sudden you're creating something on a digital camera or an iPhone or any type of camera phone where you are then producing a false positive, because it is a false picture, but it looks like it's a positive because you think it wasn't there when you initially took it.
Yeah.
So digital cameras are a drawback. But also you can manipulate proper film. It's been proven that you can doctor film. Okay, the negatives are harder to fake, or not fake, but manipulate. But you can manipulate things happening on actual film by one easy way, and that's how you develop it. How much light when you're putting it through in the darkroom, when you're putting it through the washes, you can manipulate it by a split second. You can just take it just over where you should be, and it will cause an anomaly on the picture. Double exposures, stuff like that. That's a drawback of traditional film.
Yeah.
Digital cameras, exactly the same. They all have their drawbacks. But if you know those drawbacks and you can try and cut those out of what you're using them for, then you can sort of, if you do then capture something that you know is interesting, and you can sort of get rid of everything that you could possibly think, okay, it wasn't a camera flare, it's not dust, it's this, that, and the other, or there's no light, blah, 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 then you've got something that is interesting.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's paranormal.
No.
I'm saying it's interesting, because if you can get rid of everything that you think is a negative, so to speak, you're left with something that is unexplained. And that's the nature of what we're in. We're looking for the unexplained.
It's looking for that anomaly amongst the knowledge we've got of that piece of tech, isn't it?
Correct.
Regardless of what piece of tech you're using, you're looking for that anomaly. Whether it's explainable or not within our knowledge base, that's what we're looking for. But you have to know what piece of tech you're using before you can call it an anomaly.
Yeah, Ashley's in the chat room that we were at Warwick Castle last year, and I was just standing around outside, and I was just, it's a pretty castle. I was taking photos with my iPhone 6 Plus, and the iPhone 6 Plus has, when you're in night and you're taking photos, has an anomaly that every single iPhone 6 Plus I've seen photos at night happens with. And you get like a little white, bright, looks like a little star thing that appears on a screen in certain environments, certain light conditions, when you take it, when you're on video, when you take photographs, this thing appears. And I was taking photos and I saw it, and I was talking to Ashley. I said, I know that this is an anomaly, but look at this. This is how people will jump to the conclusion this is whatever, fairies, ghosts, whatever, little people at the end of the garden or whatever. And actually, funny enough, I had been looking at this like a couple of days before, and we were going through it, and we went outside. We knew there was nothing there. We knew there was no light source. We took it again with his phone and my phone. It appeared on my phone, didn't appear on his phone because he had a different type of phone. So this is where I say about individual bits of equipment. You need to know these things, because you could, in theory, think this is the best bit of evidence, but it's an anomaly with that bit of equipment that happens in certain environments.
Exactly. And that was something that came out from just two guys chatting at a convention, effectively, and using two completely different phones, which leads us on to a whole new topic. Apps. Yeah.
Okay.
The subtlety there, Kerry. The subtlety there.
Did you like that? Did you like the smooth transition through topic?
Apps.
My personal opinion, and I looked into this a little bit. We did a show quite a while ago, on this. The problem is, I spoke to somebody else in the paranormal field about this particular topic, a guy called Kev Kerr. And with a phone, even if you put it on airplane mode, it still has a huge amount of information that it's able to access. So you can never be 100% sure. It's not like it's one app running. It's still running through various other systems within the phone that you wouldn't even realise.
Yeah, and some of these, even if you thought about, I tell you what, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to have this app on the phone. I'm going to delete everything else off the phone. The phone, particular nowadays with the smartphones, they are still, when you turn it on, it's collecting data. It's bringing stuff in. It's sending stuff out. Even if you've got no other apps on, no apps open, it's still doing updates. It's still looking for this, that, and the other. So that is my only thing about apps itself, particularly ones where you have to then connect, or if you've got a standalone one, okay, but you need to. I think, particularly when it comes to apps on phones, in my eyes, and I'm not saying I'm correct, I personally think you have to take it on face value. A lot of these ones that you see, like the Ghost Radar or the various different things like that, I think entertainment purposes, they're just for, as they say on the show, this is for entertainment purposes only. It's when you look at ones where you pay a reasonable amount of money for these apps that I'm a little bit more dubious about, because I need to understand how that app would work. And sadly, which I can understand, a lot of these people that create these apps are not that forgiving to basically tell you how their app works. And that's my only thing about it, is most of the equipment that you can buy, you can sort of break down and you can see how it works, see how it picks up, etc., etc.
Yeah.
These guys with certain apps, I'm not saying that they're hiding anything, but it's hard for me to say a definite. I wouldn't personally use some of these apps in the field, because I don't understand how they work, because, like I said, I need to understand how it works so I can work out what potentially we could get negative, false, and all that sort of stuff. So when it comes to apps, I'm well and truly, I'm sat on the fence, but I'm leaning more towards I wouldn't use them.
No, I had an app that I was basically to pre-run have a go at, basically. And it was hysterical. Well, I say it was hysterical. In my front room, I think I found about 4 demons. And we had great fun that night. And it turned out to be, it was actually picking up a signal from a different piece of equipment that was in the room, which was, my box that runs my cable. And it was a phone that was in someone's pocket. But it was showing up as demons, and that was the problem for me. You know what I mean? When I was trialing out this particular app, I'm not saying it was bad. It was just the labelling of the anomaly. It was saying, well, there's something there. Yes, there was, but it was a cable box. Or yes, it was, but it was a phone in someone's pocket. But it was going, oh, there's a demon over there. Oh, it's a demon over there. I mean, I think I had about 4 different demons in my front room, and we was actually crying with laughter about that. And I was going, oh my God, my house is really haunted. It is. And we went out with Richard, who's in the chat room. We actually went out and we tried it out on a location, and we had the same thing. And it was picking up on the phone, other people's phones in their pocket, and recording them as something as a demon, when it wasn't. It was literally just picking up the phone signals of other people around and classing it as there's a demon there and there's a demon there and there's a demon there.
I think that in particularly with the field at the moment, a lot of people use certain terminology to basically cater for a certain element of the market.
Very true. That's very, very true. Now, okay. Max has said something in the chat room. According to mathematical quantum mechanics, there could be as many as 11 dimensions, and could a lot of what we identify merely be reflections of other dimensions onto our space and dimension? Who knows? Is the question to that one, I would say. Who knows?
Well, I've had conversations about parallel dimensions and quantum whatevers and this, that and the other, and that flies well and truly over my head. But I think the most interesting conversation I had was somebody that basically said, well, are we the ghosts and what we see the living?
Yeah, that's been a theory that's been put out there.
But yeah, when it comes to parallels and what they say, there is you in 12 different other dimensions.
God help the other dimensions. That's exactly what I was thinking.
When it comes to questions like that, I just deal with flashy lights, things that light up in the dark. So.
That's true. Now we have Gary from EAPI in the chat room too. Hi, Gary. He says he does a lot of physical mediumship where he asks spirits to interact with people, but it is great when someone is filming it, because it shows what is happening at the time.
What type of physical mediumship are we talking? Are we talking sound circles? Are we talking what are we actually talking about? But when we talk about physical mediumship,
I would imagine it's when you get spirits so close that they can manipulate what you look like. And when you capture that on camera, so and you've got somebody's face that is changing, which would be a physical manifestation of physical mediumship, rather than just someone going, I'm getting so-and-so stood here. That's the difference, isn't it? You're getting a face.
Or are we talking like human pendulum and stuff like that?
I wouldn't class that as physical mediumship.
Yeah, that's what I obviously just asked Gary to clarify what.
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't class that as physical mediumship. I class that as scrying.
Some people will be what we've just described. To some other people, it means something completely different.
That's true. It does mean different things to different people. But in my perspective, physical mediumship is where you allow spirit to step so close they can affect what the visual of your features, they change into something different. If you can capture that on camera,
I would love to see footage of that physically happening.
Okay. Well, there's a challenge.
I'm not saying
I would too.
I'm not saying I would love to be able to see that, because and also being the tech geek I am, I would also like to know what camera it was filmed on.
Yeah, you'd like that side of it. Yeah, you'd like to know that side of it.
Because
the circumstances, the camera, the tech, the that side of it. Light that's used whilst filming, whether it's that kind of source. It's physical mediumship is one of those strange ones, isn't it? I've seen it happen with my own two eyes. Sitting and it's an incredible experience to witness, but there is always that. Oh, I don't know. It's a very difficult one because I
think when it comes to it's exactly the same scenario as the person in the chat room that asked the question about how can we prove that these bits of equipment are doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
You can put that to, as we said, any type of mediumship, physical.
I agree.
People from an outsider's point of view will say, well, there are so many logical reasons why it's not. There's so many logical reasons why it could be.
Yeah.
So the field crosses over so many times between mediumship, spiritualism, and equipment, because at certain points it will then cross, because people will say the same thing about mediums, what they say about equipment, and then all of a sudden they'll cross, and then it swings, and it's all sorts of weird and wonderful ways you can talk about it.
No, I totally agree with that point.
The main thing you've just got to believe in the field is you've got to be respectful for other people's beliefs.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, I work
amen to that one right there.
Totally. I mean, I work in a very spiritual way in the field, but I also still question that in the same way as you do with your tech. You want to know the answers and the reasons why that happens and why that works or why that doesn't work or what causes that anomaly. I do that on a very spiritual front. Although I work in a spiritual way, I still want to know what is the driving force behind that. Is that my own mind driving that? I'm not saying it's imagination, but is that my mind manifesting that or creating that scenario, or is it external influences coming into my mind? I still want to know that. Even with crystals and minerals, I want to know the science behind that. I want to know why that works. Why does a crystal grid work in a particular location? Or does it have that power? Yes, I know a crystal. If you squeeze a crystal, it has piezoelectricity. I can prove that. I can prove that physical manifestation. I can do that experiment. I can show you that. But when I put that in a crystal grid, I'm not squeezing anything. I'm not applying a voltage. I'm not squeezing anything. But I know that has an effect because I've seen it time and time again. So is that a manifestation of my will going out there and forcing that situation? I don't know. And that is what makes this whole field so fascinating. And that's what keeps everybody going back to it time and time again, whether you approach it from a spiritual perspective or a tech perspective. I think it's exactly the same. Absolutely. I mean, Luke has said to know if any tech works, you'd have to have a control. A video of an apparition with the equipment working in a certain way or getting an exact reading 5 or more times. And then you'd have a video of an apparition. So isn't a video camera the only equipment that would prove the paranormal?
No, because they have drawbacks as well.
Exactly.
They have drawbacks. At the end of the day, I think, which probably some people will agree, some people won't, to somebody that totally believes in the field and somebody that doesn't believe in the field, until you physically... Because okay, I'll give you a scenario. You capture a ghost, you've got a ghost in a bottle. You know it's a ghost in a bottle. You give that to a skeptic, they're going to go, that's not a ghost. It's your own belief system. You have to keep an open mind in this field. You can't, in my eyes, you have to be open-minded, because if you're not, everything that happens, everything you're in a building, it's cooling down, it's wood, the wood's shrinking, it's making noises. If you're completely and utterly in that bubble where you believe everything that happens on an investigation is paranormal, you're going to jump to so many conclusions. So you have to have this open. You have to question what you get all the time. Because if you stop questioning what you get all the time, that's then going to cause issues with other things. Because if you don't question it, you just take it on face value. You're then going to jump to the wrong conclusion of what it is. So I always question absolutely everything I capture, everything I see, everything I do, because if I don't, I feel I'm letting myself down with my whole step-by-step process I take to an investigation, my equipment. If I just, I kick myself if I don't have batteries. I don't have batteries. I absolutely kick myself because that's a fundamental thing that you need to have. For equipment, you need batteries, or you need power, or you need this, that, and the other. And there's rituals I do up until I get into an investigation, which I keep doing every time, because if I know I do them, I know that my equipment is in the best possible working thing. And if it does go wrong when you're in the field, you need to know how to. For instance, if you're in the field and your batteries run out and you're in the darkness, you don't want to turn a torch off while you take the batteries out. You need to be able to know where the slidey battery bit is, how to put the batteries in, etc., and then the equipment's working again.
Wow, you know me with that.
You need to do it as second nature.
So I can do that with crystals. I can't do that with tech. So how do we cross the field? Okay, so how do we bring the spiritual and the tech together? Because at the moment they're working in very separate fields. We're using tech in the field, but we're using spiritual methods in the field as well. But there's that gap still between them. So when we start looking at being able to bring the two fields together, when we're doing something like, for example, physical mediumship, and you're having those visual physical changes, how about facial recognition? Would that be a useful tool, do you think, in regards to mapping changes that are happening?
When it comes to facial recognition, unless you are the CIA, FBI, or any government agency, the sort of stuff, the facial recognition software you can buy or you can get nowadays, as most things, we just said, everything has drawbacks. So unless you're a government or whatever that has the top of the range that can pick out something or can do this, whatever, I can understand where you're going down that side. But I think one of the biggest things to try and draw both sides together is education for both sides. So get the person who is spiritual, get them and train them how to use the equipment properly, and then.
Sorry,
you know what
you've been trying for years.
We're a little bit closer.
We're getting there slowly but surely.
You can do the exact same with the equipment people and stuff like that. Is education, and if you're into the equipment, you will. I love to learn. I love to learn things. I love to learn new stuff. So if somebody is going to give me another way that I can use, or another way of thinking about it, another way of experiencing something that I can then use with my way I do stuff, I think that is how we then progress. I think if both people stand in their own camp saying all equipment's wrong and all spiritual people are wrong and all that, we're never going to progress.
No, we need to bring these 2 points together. We have to. Yeah,
I agree. What you think it is.
Yeah. Sorry, Jay.
It's easier than what you think it is. There's a lot of people already doing it, at least that I see. I know every group that I associate with and every group that I work with, they have people who are techs on their team. They also have people that are spiritualists, and they are all working together and using that verification when somebody with the ability say they are sensing something, or they say they're getting something, they immediately use the equipment to try to see if they can't validate and confirm what they're doing, see if there's any kind of environmental fluctuations that they can register and gauge, because now you're getting somebody that says they have a disability, they can feel things, and now you're getting proof, and you're using the equipment the way it was designed to detect environmental fluctuations. So that's the bad thing to me about a lot of the equipment. People use it. They know, they heard how it's supposed to be used, but they know how they saw it used on this show. Learn and use it the way it's supposed to be used, especially if you have a sensitive or psychic medium or spiritualist on your team. Because like I said, when they sense something and then you can prove, because this is a proven science now, they're using the absolute known proof of it to show an environmental change or something like that. Now you're heading in a direction. So it's happening a lot more what you think it is.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I think one of the major drawbacks that can happen, that is happening at the moment, is the social media side of the paranormal. Yes, it's great to plug things. Yes, it's great for doing this. But I think sometimes people get overexcited about making sure that the people out there know their point of view and won't listen to anybody else's point of view. And I think that's where the field can lose its way slightly, is because we need to start working together on social media, not shouting people down because they post a picture or they post this, that. There's so many, I've seen it so many times where somebody posts something which their belief is that they've caught something. And I have no problem with people's belief if they've caught something. And then all of a sudden you get 30 people just jumping on them like a house, just pouncing on them, saying, "Oh, what are you talking? You this, that, and the other." And I'm thinking that is the negative side of the social media and the paranormal, is that aspect of it. And I think that's where I try and, well, I do. I stay well away from it. If people want to come up to me on an investigation or a convention and say, "Have a look at this, what do you think?" I will look at it and I will say, "Well, yeah, this is interesting, but have you thought that it potentially could be this, that, and the other?" I'll explain to them in a way that isn't saying, "You're an idiot, why are you posting something like that?"
And that's the point, isn't it? Is that respectfulness that needs to happen between all of the fields. I mean, Max has said, I think it will take the trifecta of the paranormal, science and spiritual in order to get the answers. And I agree with that.
Oh, I do too.
It takes all of those factors together to try and work together to get some answers, to build up that database, whether or not you're working in the spiritual. I'm working in this way myself at this moment in time, along with scientists, along with tech experts being a subjective term, obviously.
Just like a paranormal expert.
Exactly, yeah, it's one of those terms. But somebody who knows the tech, somebody who knows the psychology, somebody who knows the spiritual, somebody, we've got that in place, and we're working towards trying to bring those fields together. We are working in that way in the field. Other people are doing this too. It's not just us who's doing this. There are plenty of other people out there doing this. And that's the point. It's bringing the fields together to try and build up that data, to try and explain some of the anomalies that we get in the field. And it's a three-way thing. It's knowing what your tech does. I admit, I'm sat here quite honestly going, I have no idea. And trust me, Carl has spent many hours going through pieces of tech with me, and I still can't seem to get it into my brain cell. You know what I mean? But then I will sit there and talk crystals, and I'm sure he would acknowledge the same factor back.
Yeah, exactly. I asked you what, because I wanted to, when I've got my house and all this sort of, and I asked you where to place certain crystals to change the energy in the house. And because I hadn't got a clue, I could have just, that looks pretty over there.
Yeah.
But I asked you what type of crystal would be best, where should I place it, this, that, and the other. And so I'm asking for your advice, because you have that sort of, you have that knowledge.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have a clue. And like you've done with me, and said, well, tell me about this, tell me about that, tell me about this. And that's what, this bit of equipment, and that's what, but we are talking, we're learning from each other. And I think that's what we need to start learning from each other.
Yeah, and I've got experiments in mind in regard to crystals that I want Carl to actually help me with, because, God, I want to create something. I've got an idea, one of those wacky, weird ideas. It may work, it may not work. I've got a weird and wacky idea. I go to Carl and I go, Carl, okay, so this is my idea. And Carl goes, okay, girl, let's look at this in a, how can we do this? And I go, well, I know this crystal has got this property and it's supposed to do this and that. How do I make that happen? How can we prove this? You know what I mean? And that's what we kind of, many late night discussions.
Mm-hmm.
Many late night discussions has been had on these kind of topics, but they're brainstorming, and that's the beauty of it. Yes, Gary, the beauty of the paranormal is everybody is different and everybody knows different techniques, and that's one of the reasons why. But Carl does a paranormal radio show called PSH Paranormal, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason we both do what we do, and Jay as well.
Oh, I'm here.
Because sorry, darling. Sorry. It's because we love talking to people, love getting different opinions, love getting different ideas, so we can incorporate those within the work we do. And you're always, always learning.
Yeah, I've been doing the radio for 3.5 years. 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years in a couple of months' time. And over those time, I've got the opportunity to talk to people that I probably wouldn't in a normal day would get that opportunity to talk to them. I'm talking about something I'm passionate about, what they're passionate about, and I love picking their ideas, like talking to them. That's why I think conventions are so good, because you're in a safe place. Nobody's going to judge you at these conventions because you're all there, because you all have the same passions. Networking, you get to meet people, you can talk to people, you learn things. Yes, okay, there are certain aspects that people out there will look at our field and go, you're all nuts, you're all crazy. But we're not. We're most of us are quite sane people.
Yeah.
And we're just in it because we have this, we're questioned. And I always say I have more questions than I've got answers in my career in this field. And
1 minute left.
Yeah, we've got 1 minute left. Poor old David's going crazy.
I think we just do everything. So
absolutely.
We can.
So, with 1 minute left, thank you, Carl, for being with us. We'll have to have you back on again. Carrie, as always, it's wonderful listening to you.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's great. I love it.
Sorry, kind of took over. Thank you so much, Carl. As you can tell, he's one of my closest friends, and it's absolutely fascinating talking to him. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us in the chat room.
Y'all stay and listen to Chris and Wayne Show.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.